Hi, Red here again, and it's probably about time I started talking about writing. I've been spending a lot of time, talking about the influences in my life and the things that I'd like to do, the kind of person I'd like to be. But all of that's just kind of background into the writing that I'm going to be doing. And I think it's fair to say that my focus or my attention in my writing will be, at least initially, on people, relationships, uh, relationships with themselves, people's relationships with the world at large, and with each other, of course. But I think certainly the first novel that I've got in mind, and several of the short stories, all involve themes, or a theme, a common theme of under pressure, grace under pressure. How do you find grace? How do you find how do you live? How do you keep going when you're faced with tremendous stresses and setbacks and tragedies and all kinds of negative events in your life? How do you go forward in that kind of situation? I think that's for me, that's a fundamental question. You think about the wars. We've got war in Ukraine right now, and you've got people suffering tremendous hardships, not just one or two, but thousands, millions of people having this suffering. How do they get out of bed in the morning and go do what they have to do? How do they find um, the grace that allows them to be compassionate and generous, even under duress? And I think that is an interesting area that I really want to explore. How do people overcome the negative events in their lives, and how do you overcome, if you're dealt a bad hand or something bad happens to you, whether it's your fault or not, how do you go on from that? I am acquainted with somebody who was convicted of murder, and it was a despicable murder. And I've been very interested, and I probably at some point should talk to him about it. How do you come back from that? How do you live a life knowing that you've killed somebody? How can you go forward, and how can you not erase the stain, but how do you live with the stain and live productively with the stain and try to find a way forward? And similarly, the folks that were affected by the murder victims, by the murder victim, the knowledge, how do you find a way to forgive or move on, make peace, with that whole situation, that whole event, and knowing that somebody who has committed murder, and a horrible murder, is, out in society trying to become a productive citizen, trying to be a positive influence. And so that's one of the themes, I think, that really resonates with me, and I certainly will be exploring it as I once I start getting into the serious business of writing, kind of my truth.